Okay, Year 7, we're about to move on to the next section of measurement. And we've done perimeter. And remember, perimeter is the distance that is measured around the outside of a shape. Now we're going to move on to area. So we need a good definition of what area is, and we need to understand how we calculate area. So the first thing is, well, what is area? And our definition comes straight from the textbook over here. You can see area is often referred to as the amount of space, get out there, is often referred to as the amount of space contained inside a flat shape. So you need to write down somewhere in your notes, area is the amount of space contained in a closed 2D shape. Now, the next thing is, how is area measured? So there's a closed 2D shape. How do we measure area? How do we work out how much space is in that? Well, we could measure it in circles. We could say that this area has 100 metre circles in there. But as you can see, if I'm drawing these circles, I'm getting lots of little gaps in between. So circles are not a good way to use area because they have gaps. We could use triangles. And you can see there are no gaps if I use triangles. So I could say that the area here is 100 metre triangles. And as you can see, if I keep drawing these triangles, what I end up with is hexagons. And yeah, now that could be a way. They could have decided to do that. But we didn't. We went for the safe square. And again, there are no gaps with the square. But it's just easier than triangles. So what we say is the area inside this shape would be 100 square metres. So when we talk about measurement, we say area is measured in square units. All right, so now that we know those two things, let's move on. Now, here they talk about converting, and I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Trying to convert square units, so metres squared to kilometres squared or centimetres squared to metres squared, is fraught with danger and difficult. We can do it, but we're going to leave it for the moment. We'll leave that towards the end of the unit. You're better off converting the units, making them all the same before you start. So if you want to know the area in metres squares, put all your units in metres. If you want to know the area in kilometre squares, put all your units in kilometres before you begin. And the same with all the other distance units. Now, they give a formula for area here, which is all well and good, but I don't want to use that. They also talk about a square. We're going to talk about that a bit later. We're not going to use that either. I'm going to show you how we develop the area of a rectangle. So you'll notice that in this exercise, we go straight to questions 3 and 4, which you can do verbally. But I want to talk about, how do I find the area of a rectangle? How do I find out how many squares? Well, the first thing I do is I divide it up into the units. So if this is a rectangle, and I break it up into all the different squares. So down this side, it's 4 units long. And along this side, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units long. And all I have to do is count the number of squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I could go and count them all. But the smart people amongst you are going, well, there are going to be 8 columns, each with 4 squares in them. So I can just go 8 times 4 and get 32, whatever units. Let's say it was in metres. And although I'm going to put the metre square like this, I say, and I can say metre squares, but I prefer to say square metres. Now, if this is going to be the same for all rectangles, that's why they use length and breadth. So you'll see the formula is area equals length and breadth. It doesn't matter what letters you do or use. But what I'd like to use, because it makes it so much easier, is the height of the rectangle and the base of the rectangle. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to be using area equals BH. It just makes it easier for a couple of other formulas that we're going to use later on. You can use either one. You can use this one, LB, or you can use this one. It doesn't really matter. Some people even say area equals length times width. So you can choose. This is the one I'm going with. So if you have a look at the work, I want you to do 3 and 4, and you can just do them verbally. You can just count the number of squares in 3. So here you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That has 5 square units. And for C, you can count the number along the top and along down the bottom and work it out. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I've got 12 along the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. 8 along here. So the area here is 8 times 12. 8 tens are 80, 12, 16, 96 square units, or 96 unit squares. Question 4, check those out. What's the best way to measure that? An A4 piece of paper? I don't know. What would you choose? I think I'd use centimetres squared. If I was choosing the area of a small farm, well, you haven't heard about it yet, but we would measure probably that in hectares. What about the football oval? Down at the bottom where you play your footy or your touch or your soccer. Well, we'd probably use metres squared for that. So you get an idea of the size of those. Let's move on here to questions 6 and 7. And this is how I want you to set them out. These are so easy, and I'd probably have my calculator at the ready unless you're really good with your times tables. So here we go. 6A, and this is what I want you to write. Area equals BH. If you write the formula every time, what you'll find is you'll start committing it to memory. Well, what's the base? 20. And by the way, we're looking at this rectangle. And what's the height? 10. And I go, 20 times 10. Now you should know that that's just adding another 0. But you can go to your calculator. 20 times 10, 200. And note the units, centimetres. So we'll say centimetre squares. Don't say centimetre. Yeah, it's most important. B, and you can do these. I'm not going to do all of them. The area equals BH. Remember, I'm using BH. You can use LB, but trust me, later on it'll be easier. What's the base? 2. What's the height? 11. 2 times 11, 22. What units are we in? Millimetre squares. You have a go at the next one by yourself. Pause the video and give it a crack. Okay. If you're back here and you're checking to see if you're right, area equals BH, which equals, they've got it on their side. It doesn't matter. I'm going to call that the base, and I'm going to call that the height. It doesn't matter that it's written or drawn a little bit askew. So I'm going 3.5 times 2, and that's 7 centimetres squares. Now be aware, you can go to your calculator and do that. Now I want to talk about D. Now D is a square, but we can use the same formula. We use the same formula, but it doesn't matter. So BH, well, what's the base? Well, the base is 5, and that little line here, this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing, tell me that they're all the same. So the base is 5. Oh, it's going to go right back to the beginning now. I had it when it does this. Okay, where are we? Where's it gone to? 10G. So we're back up here. So when we said the base was 5, and come on, and the height was 5, and 5 times 5, 25. What units are we in? Meters. Meter squares. The next one, E. Well, area, BH. Now, if you use the formula they use, they say S squared, the side times itself. You can write that down if you want, and it might come in handy later on when we do some solving equations, but not at the moment. So it's just 1 point, the base is 1.2, and the height is 1.2, because they're the same. I think I'll use my calculator for this. 1.44. What unit are we in? Millimetre squares. Now you can keep going with these. I'm going to jump down to I, which is the last one. And what have I got? It's a rectangle or a square, same formula. Base, height. What's a base? 10.2. What's the height? 17.6. Multiply them together. I'm going to use my calculator again. 10.2 times 17.6, 179.52. Was it 0.52? Yep. And these units were in kilometres. Whoops, I wrote cubed. Get that out of there. Kilometre squares. I want squares because I'm measuring in squares. Okay. Now, question 7. So this is a bit harder. Question 7. Now, I'm not going to do all of these. You have a go at these. 7A. They tell me the area, and they tell me it's a square. I'm going to draw a picture. I say, oh, here you got a square, and the area is 4 centimetre squares. But they don't tell me the length of this side or this side. But I'm just going to use, I'm going to call that side and this side. And I know that the area equals the base, which is that S, times the height, which is S. So S times S equals 4. And they've got to be the same. If only I knew two numbers that multiplied by each other to equal 4. And they say you can use trial and error if you're unsure. So 1 times 1, well, that doesn't work because 1 times 1 is 2. That's no good. What about 2? 2 times 2. Well, that equals 4. So the side length is 2. Now, you're really lucky because we're mathematicians and we have a function on our calculator that tells us when two numbers multiply by each other to equal a number. So, for example, if I said the area was 16, what two numbers multiply out to 16? Well, if I square root, and that's what that symbol means, the square root of 16, it will tell me the two numbers that multiply out to 16, and it's on your calculator. It's 3 buttons above the 8. So here it is here. So if you go square root 16, you get 4. That means 4 times 4 will equal 16. Let's test it on the one we just did. So we'll press square root. Whoops, I've got too many square roots there. The square root of a square root. So square root of 4. And it gives me the answer 2. You try 7b, because in 7b, it tells me that my square has an area of 25 meters squares. So if I want to find the side length, I think I'll just square root that 25. Again, I'll just go straight to my calculator and I go square root 25, 5. So the side length is 5. And what that is telling me is that 5 times 5 equals 25. So I can get the side length that way. You do the last one there, 144, on your own with a calculator. The last one I want you to do, not the last one, the next one I want you to do is convert. So let's have a look at question 8. I'm going to create some space for myself here. And here we go. So now, hectare. We use a hectare. A hectare is 1 hectare equals 10,000 meters squared. So when you look at someone's property and they say they've got 5 hectares, then we've got 5 lots of 10,000. 50,000 square meters. 50,000 square meters. Now, a football field is usually about 70 by 100. That's a really big football field. 70 by 100, maybe 60 by 100. 60 by 100 is 6,000 meters squared. So a hectare is about almost, not quite, double a football field. So if they've got 5 hectares, they've got, 5 times 2, they've got 10 football fields, thereabouts. So when we're doing our conversions, here's 8a. I've got 20,000 meters squared. To find out how many hectares, I'm just going to divide by 1,000. Now, by 10,000. And that'll tell me how many hectares. Now you can use your calculator, or you can just cross off, look here, cross off 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. 20,000 meters to hectares. 2 lots of 10,000. Now, when I say cross off, you're dividing, you're cancelling. But let's double check on our calculator. 20,000 divided by 10,000. You try the next one on your own and then come back. I'm going to do it. 100,000 divided by 10,000. And just cross off 4 zeros and I'll get 10 hectares. Double check. 100, 1, 2, 3, divided by 10, 1, 2, 3, 10 hectares. The last one, it's 5,000. That's not quite a hectare. I should put meters squared in here. So if I divide by 10,000, let's see what it gives me. 5,000 divided by 10,000, 0.5, or half of a hectare. I'll accept either 0.5 of a hectare. I'll even accept half a hectare. They're the same thing. So from then, the rest I want you to try and do as many as you can. doing all the old ones. So if I look at 9, here we go. A rectangular soccer field is to be laid with new grass. It's 100 by 50. So draw yourself a rectangle. It's 100 metres by 50 metres. Well, the area is BH, 100 times 50, 5,000 metres squared. That's question 9. You have a go at the next one. 11, I'm going to jump down to 15. And then you're going to have a go at the others on your own. Okay, a rectangular area of land is 200 by 400. Okay, so 200 by 400. Well, area equals BH. The base is 400 and the height is 200. I'm going to use my calculator this time. 80,000 meters squared. But they said find the distance in hectares. Well, it's lucky I did question 8 because I know to find it in hectares, I just have to divide by 10,000. And again, I'll use my calculator for this. I've already got my answer there, so if I just go divided by 10, 1, 2, 3, I get 8 hectares. Then you've only got to do 17 and 19 if you get time. Remember, as long as you understand these things. So right back here, that area is the amount of space contained in a closed two-dimensional shape. Area is measured in square units. And the formula that we're going to use, or that I'm going to use in class, is BH, base times height. You can use LB, you can use LW, and even for a square, if you want to, you can do area equals the side squared, which just means the side times the side. Good luck.